Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the final workshop of the GreenThumb GrowTogether Conference. My name is Mara Gittleman. I am the Workshops and Education Coordinator for NYC Parks GreenThumb. We are the part of the New York City Parks Department that works with community gardens across the city. So I am very pleased to introduce Kelly Pacumio, who is a Filipina spiritual herbalist and a registered nurse. She combines her knowledge of science and Western medicine with the medicine of the earth and ancestral ways to help others towards wellness. She's also the founder of Maharlika, an herbal line that offers herbal remedies that are inspired by ancestral wisdom and healing. She is a graduate of Sacred Vibes Apothecary, Spiritual Herbalism's apprenticeship, and will forever be a student of herbalism who continues to be deeply committed to help serving communities. Thank you, Kelly. Thanks so much for coming tonight. You have the mic.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thanks, Mara, for the introduction. So just going to repeat a little bit. My name is Kelly. I'm a registered nurse and an herbalist. I've been a registered nurse for about 6 years now, and I specialize in pediatrics, the operating room, and I recently graduated from herbalism last year. I got to study with Karen Rose. She's the founder of Sacred Vibes Apothecary. And I just love herbalism, especially spiritual herbalism, because I learned when you develop a relationship with plants, the plants do more than just heal our bodies. They heal all parts of our bodies, and it has forever changed my life. And today we're going to talk about herbal honeys, which I'm excited about because it's such easy medicine to make and it's easily accessible. And yeah, so I'll get started because I have a lot to share. So I'm just going to share my screen. And again, feel free to just type in the chat where you guys are tuning in from. I see people from the Bronx, New York. I'm also tuning in from New York, Queens specifically. So hey, everybody. And I also saw somebody from North Carolina. Okay, let me see. So sorry about that. So what is honey? So honey is made from bees, which are important creatures. Without the bees, we wouldn't have life. And the way bees make honey is by collecting the nectar from the flowers. Then they take it back to the hive, then they regurgitate it, and then the other bees chew on it, and then it becomes honey. Then they take this honey into the honeycombs, then they fan it with their wings to dry it out, and then this makes the honey stickier. And the reason why honey gets its sweetness is because of the chemical makeup, glucose and fructose, which makes it sweet. And the benefits of honey is it's an antiviral and antimicrobial. It's an emollient, demulcent, nutritive, and mildly laxative. And this is why many of you folks have used honey when you have a sore throat, because it's a demulcent, and demulcent means that it soothes the mucous membranes. And emollient because it moisturizes the skin. That's why honey is used in a lot of like do-it-yourself face masks or health skincare treatments. And it is beneficial for relieving dryness and pain in the throat, treating coughs, and taking a teaspoon of your locally honey is good for preventing allergies. And I'm sure you saw these types of honey in the supermarket, raw and regular. The difference between raw and regular honey is that raw honey comes straight from the hive and it's least processed and it has the most antioxidant. And the regular honey means that it has been pasteurized and removed and it has been processed to remove imperfections and contain other sugars. So regular honey is a little sweeter than raw. I recommend using raw honey. It's healthier, but to make herbal medicine with honey, you can use any honey of your choice. So don't feel like you only have to use raw. And the contraindications of honey is children younger than 2 years old due to infant botulism. So infant botulism is a bacteria found in honey. And the reason why you don't want to give it to infants is because infants are still developing their digestive system and don't have the proper immune system to fight off this bacteria, which could be life-threatening. So yeah, so don't give honey to kids. And the reason why honey has different colors is it depends on the kind of plant the bees took the nectar from. So I also shared like a little history of honey, little fun facts. Honey has been used for thousands of years throughout ancient cultures. It was found in 8,000-year-old paintings in Valencia, Spain, and it showed like humans hunting for honey. And it was used in traditional Ayurvedic medicine to treat imbalances in the body. In ancient Egyptian times, it was used to treat wounds, sweeten cakes, biscuits, and even embalm the dead. And this makes sense because honey is a preservative. So that's why the ancient Egyptians used it to mummify the bodies. And honey has also been compared to the nectar of the gods. It was considered royal. They would give it to the leaders, like the kings and queens. And throughout the Bible, in Judaism, Christianity, and Muslim and Islam, honey is cited as a holy substance. And Prophet Muhammad glorified the healing powers of honey. And to this day, we still use honey for everything. It has been such an important medicine, and we thank the bees. So it's so important to save the bees, because without the bees, we won't have life and honey. And we can move to the next slide. So now I'm going to talk about the spiritual meaning of honey, and which is my favorite part. So in ancient cultures, bees were considered power animals, and they symbolize fertility, community, prosperity, diligence, and work ethic. And this makes sense because the bees all work together. You have one bee's taking the nectar, and then one bee's working in the hives. And they had reverence for the queen bee, because the queen bee is the only female bee with with complete ovaries to lay eggs. And yeah, I think the way the bees operate is so beautiful, and it's a good way us humans can like learn from, especially some men, to treat queens as queens. I'm kidding, but yeah. Anyways, honey, because of its sticky properties, can be used in magic to hold two things together. So how does honey make you feel? We know that honey is sweet, it's sticky, it's thick. So spiritually, it does make sense that you want to use honey to bring things together, things that are falling apart. In some magical traditions, they use honey to bind a couple that has a shaky relationship, or two friends who are struggling with their friendship. So if any of y'all, are struggling with your partner, fighting too much, maybe you can brew a hot tea, put some honey in it, and set the intention to like sweeten their feelings towards you, so they won't be mad anymore. So that's a good way to use honey spiritually. And it could also be used for yourself. In those moments, sometimes we can be so hard on ourselves that we're not sweet with ourselves. We're just judging ourselves. Honey is a beautiful way to work with, to be kind. So when we make that tea, we can set that intention with honey. When we're doing a bath, maybe we can add honey. So there's so many ways you could use honey. Even when we're putting honey in our toast, just setting that intention is so powerful. So that's another way you can like use honey with wellness and spiritually. And in some forms of hoodoo and folk magic, honey is used to sweeten someone's feelings towards you, which makes sense. And they would dress a candle with honey. So if any of you guys have like a ritual practice on a new moon or a full moon when you're lighting a candle, if you want to bring more sweetness into your life, you can dress your candle with honey. And honey is one of the gifts that you'd like want to offer to a deity, especially a deity that represents love and beauty, such as Aphrodite, Oshun, and Venus. Setting that intention with your altar or whatever spiritual practice you have. If you want to bring in more love and beauty and sweetness, you can offer honey. And in Hindu texts, honey is also described as one of the 5 sacred elixirs of immortality. You can go to the next slide, Mara. Thank you. So what is herbal honey? I'm so excited to teach this because herbal honey is so easy to make, and you can literally make this with your friends, your family, with anyone and anywhere, as long as you have the ingredients, and it's easily accessible. So herbal honeys are thick liquid preparations used with dried herbs. This is so important. You want to use dried herbs and not fresh herbs. The reason why is because fresh herbs have water contents, and when you mix it with honey, it can lead to like bacteria and fungus can grow due to the water. So make sure you're using dried herbs, or if you do have fresh herbs, you dry them properly. And the benefits of herbal honey is that it's medicinal and tastier. So to know that honey is already medicinal on its own, to add more medicinal herbs just makes it such a power medicine. And it's such an easy power medicine that you guys can make on your own. So I'm so excited to get into it. But next, we're going to talk about 3 herbs: rose, ginger, and lavender. And we're going to start with rose. And Mara, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So rose, I don't know if many of you work with rose, but I'm sure you've seen it. Rose is one of my favorite herbs. I'm currently walking with it right now, and it's just, it's such beautiful medicine, and I can't wait to get into it. So I'm gonna get into it right now. So the Latin name is Rosa spp. SPP means that rose come in many species. The taxonomy is Rosaceae, which is a part of the rose family. And it's interesting because I don't know if many of you are familiar with rosacea, when your face gets red. So it's interesting how like it came from rose, that redness. And the native habitat is Persia, but then rose is taken worldwide. The planetary influence is Venus and water. The energetic quality is pungent, bitter, and sweet. And the parts that we use for the rose are the flowers and the hips. So the hips are what happens when the petals of the rose fall off. You have the fruit, and that's the hip, and that part is also medicinal. The historical uses. So there are many crimes committed over rose. Rose has been used for thousands of years. Ancient Egypt used rose for love rituals. In 10th century France, they used rose for perfumes, cosmetics, rose water, which we still use today. I love rose water. And the actions. So the flowers and the hips have 2 different actions. The flowers are cooling, which makes sense because when we think of rose, it's a Venus and water plant, right? So that means that it's good for those with a lot of fire in their body, meaning if we have a lot of inflammation in our body, the flowers help with that. The flowers are also an antiviral, an antidepressant, gives moistening effects, which makes sense because the planetary influence is water. It's also a blood tonic, which also makes sense because roses are red. It's an aphrodisiac and antispasmodic. Antispasmodic means it relieves like spasms of muscles or in your body. So that's good for when you're stressed. You know, when we're stressed, sometimes our muscles start switching. And what I love about herbs and plants is that the way it looks, we can already get a sense of like the healing properties. So that's something we can look out for when we're out in nature and observing plants. The hips. So the hips are good for those who lack vitamin C, meaning those with scurvy, anti-scurvy. It's also antipyretic, meaning if you have fevers, you want to take rose hips. It's an astringent, meaning it tightens. It's an antiseptic and nutritive and tonic. You can go to the next slide, Mara. Thank you. And when would you use rose? Rose, the flowers, you'd use it if you're feeling depressed, stressed, have nervousness, a sore throat because it has that antiviral effect, inflammation because it's cooling. It's good for PMS, bleeding gums because it's a blood tonic, so it replenishes our blood. And the hips can be used if you have a cold because the hips have a lot of vitamin C. It was said that if you take a cup of rose hips, it's equivalent to like 1,000 oranges, eating 1,000 oranges, which is insane. And it's good for preventing colds and increasing magnesium intake. So if you want to like stray away from taking vitamin C supplements, you can think of taking rose hips. And contraindications of rose. Rose doesn't have any contraindications. You just can't use the commercial roses that we see and that we give during Valentine's Day. You want to use wild roses. And how would you prepare rose? You would do a standard infusion, meaning 1 tablespoon of rose petals to 1 cup of water, and you would let it steep for 15 to 20 minutes. And for the hips, you would boil it. It's a decoction. So you would take like a tablespoon of rose hips and then a cup of water or two and let it boil. And then after you boil it, let it steep for 15 to 20 minutes. And there's so many ways you can use rose. Rose is delicious as a syrup. You can use it as a spray, making rose water spray for the face, because it's cooling. It's a tonic. It's good for like tightening our skin. I know as we age, we like decrease collagen production. So rose is such beautiful medicine for skincare. And now we're going to move to the spiritual properties. So how does rose make you feel? We know that rose is ruled by Venus and it's water. And the way it looks, it's this beautiful flower, but it has thorns. So rose teaches us that when we want to bloom, when we want to be our most beautiful self, it's important to have protection, because when we approach a rose bush, we don't just grab a rose, right? We have to like be careful because we could hurt ourselves. So rose teaches us and others that in order to love us, you need to approach us this way. What does it mean to have protection and boundaries? Not to just open our hearts, but to do so with protection, because when we're protecting ourselves, we're honoring ourselves. Rose also teaches us to love ourselves and have deep compassion. It also teaches us that beauty isn't impertinence. It teaches us that protection is necessary. And sometimes when we overwork our hearts, we don't want to like love anymore. So rose brings that love energy back into our hearts and opens our hearts again. I love rose. I'm currently walking with rose, and it's been a journey. And rose teaches us what does it mean to be beautiful, but internally. And when we are deeply desired, we need a sense of protection when blooming to our radiant selves. Okay, we could go to the next slide. Thanks, Mara. And then the next herb we're going to talk about is ginger. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to like mention it in the chat. Oh, sorry. So what do you mean by walking with rose? Meaning that I'm intentionally taking rose every single day, and it's been my second week of taking rose. So what I love about plant medicine is that when you walk with it, meaning you like engage with it, you could drink it as a tea every day or just be with it, sleep next to it, talk to it. You'll notice how their healing properties go beyond just like healing your body. It like heals your relationships, it heals all parts of your life. And taking rose as a tea. Yeah. Yes, I love plants. When you build a relationship with plants, they just bring so much magic into your life. Sorry. And oh, the rose hips, you would want to dry them. So you can purchase this at your local apothecary, or like online on a website that sells bulk herbs. So there's those are some ways you can purchase roses. And the next plant we're going to talk about is ginger. I love ginger. I know many of y'all came across ginger, use it in your foods. In my culture, we use ginger for everything. You know, once that someone's feeling sick, we start boiling ginger tea. But ginger is such a special plant, and it has a different vibe compared to rose, and you guys are going to see. So ginger, the Latin name is Zingiber officinale. The taxonomy is Zingiberaceae, which means it's part of the ginger family. Its native habitat is Asia, the tropics, and it's cultivated in Jamaica. The planetary influence is Mars and fire. So this herb has like the opposite vibe compared to rose. Rose was very Venus, water. Now this is of Mars and fiery, spicy herb. And the energetic quality is spicy, warm, pungent, hot, and dry. The parts that we use in ginger are the roots and essential oils. The historical uses. Ginger has been around for thousands of years, and in India and China, they use it for health remedies. I know in other cultures too, like ginger has been around and used as medicine for a very long time. And the actions. So Ginger is an antiviral, it's an antimicrobial, an anti-inflammatory, a circulatory stimulant, which makes sense because it's a Mars and fire herb, so it gets things moving. It stimulates blood flow, it warms the body, it helps us sweat, it stimulates menstrual flow, and it's a tonic, which means that it gives us a sense of vigor, well-being, and it helps prevent vomiting, and it's an aphrodisiac. And that makes sense because when things are just flowing in our body and blood is rushing through all our organs, it can really like stimulate us. And thanks, Mara. Can you move to the next slide? And when would you use ginger? So ginger is used when you have a cold, cough, flu, any respiratory complaints, excessive mucus, which makes sense because it's warming. So it like dissolves the mucus and it moves it out of your body. It helps with motion sickness, believe it or not. So if you're like in the car or on the boat, carry some ginger with you and just chew on it. It helps with indigestion and any abdominal pain, digestive issues, poor circulation, rheumatism, fatigue, migraines, menstrual cramps, and low libido. So this makes sense. And ginger is considered one of the doctrines of signatures, meaning the way the herb looks, it works on that body. And when you look at ginger, doesn't it look like fat fingers? So because of that, we know that it helps with arthritis. So those who have pain, ginger is a good medicine to use. And ginger, and it makes sense that ginger is good for the digestive system because the digestive system is hot. It has acid. You need acid to break down the food. And ginger is ruled by Mars and fire. So, and our stomach loves warmth. So ginger is a beautiful herb for the stomach. And the contraindications for ginger is early pregnancy, ulcers in esophagus, and essential oils may be too strong. So make sure you dilute it. And this makes sense because, we know that ginger is a stimulant, so you don't want to use it during early pregnancy. And ulcers in the esophagus or stomach tract, because ginger is fire. So if you already have a wound in the esophagus or in the esophagus, you got to be careful with ginger, maybe not too much. And how would you prepare ginger? Ginger is prepared as a decoction, meaning you boil the root with water and you let it steep. You boil it and then you let it steep for 15 to 20 minutes. So one thing with decocking ginger, you want to make sure that you cover it because when you cover it, you capture the essential oils, and the essential oils is what makes ginger medicinal. And dry ginger is actually 4 times stronger than fresh ginger. So you need like only a half a teaspoon and water to get the medicinal effects of ginger compared to like using a lot of fresh ginger. So that's one way we can be sustainable. But I personally, I love fresh herbs and I love fresh ginger. There's just something about like peeling the skin and chopping it, like the whole process that just warms me up. I can't explain it, and it just makes me think of my family because I remember just my uncle or my mom, whenever I'm not feeling good, they would like chop ginger for me and boil ginger tea. So it brings that nostalgia feeling. So you can, whatever you feel called to use, you can use dried or fresh. And you could use ginger in a tincture or honey infusion, which we will do soon. And externally, ginger is good as an oil for pain, arthritis pain, or menstrual cramps. So spiritual property of ginger. So how does ginger feel? I know it has a different vibe from rose, right? Now this feels spicy and it's heating and it's fire. And because of these properties, ginger is good for those whose hearts are frozen or feel frozen, or those who are cut off from their feelings because of trauma or pain and they no longer want to feel. So ginger is good to like warm the feelings up again and move that pain out of our body so we can heal and forgive. It's such a beautiful herb for forgiveness. I personally use ginger for forgiveness work with my family, and it's wild how like it really helps. And there's a saying when like my teacher taught us that when you heal yourself, you heal 7 generations back and 7 generations forward, and also your immediate family and your family members. And That's so true, because when you like do the self work, you'll notice like, oh, your parents are doing the work too, and it just flows. So but ginger is beautiful for forgiveness work, especially with family. So if there's like issues in the family, maybe like conversations, heavy conversations that need to be said in the table, you want to like, have everybody drink a ginger tea, have a cup of ginger tea in their hands, to work with forgiveness. Ginger is also used for love spells and money spells, and that makes sense because ginger is an aphrodisiac and gets things moving, and we can like bring money abundance into our lives, and it helps with boosting the self-esteem. And this makes sense because we know that ginger is connected to the digestive system, and spiritually, I don't know if many of you are familiar with chakras, the digestive system is related to the solar plexus. And the solar plexus is all about our power and our confidence. So ginger teaches us to be in our power, to honor ourselves, to build our confidence. And yeah, ginger is the bomb. And let's see if you guys have any questions. Yes, I believe you can grow ginger. And okay, but yes, I'm gonna go to the next slide. Thanks, Mara. Oh, sorry, my foot fell asleep. Okay, so our last herb is lavender. I know you guys have been familiar with lavender, or like come across lavender essential oils or bundles of lavender. I love lavender. It smells so good. So lavender, the Latin name is Lavandula augustifolia. The Latin word means to wash, literally means to wash, lavandula. And the taxonomy is Lamiaceae, means that lavender is part of the mint family. Yep. And the native habitat is Mediterranean region and has been naturalized everywhere. The planetary influence of lavender is sun, Mercury, and air. The energetic quality is dry, cool, bitter, pungent, and it's a yang herb, meaning it's like more of a masculine herb. The parts that we use with lavender is the flowering tops. And historically, lavender has been used as an antiseptic during World War I to help with wounds. And it was used as strewing, meaning that people would throw lavender on the ground and they would step on it to activate the smell. It was also used to repel moths and bugs from restored clothing. So if any of you guys are struggling from moths, you can put a packet of lavender in your closet. And a bottle of lavender oil was kept in a corset to prevent women from fainting. It was burned in sick people's rooms to prevent diseases. And it was an herb prostitutes used to prevent STDs and to also advertise that they were prostitutes. And those were the services they were offering. Mara could go to the next slide. Thank you. The actions. So the actions of lavender is that it's an analgesic, meaning it helps with pain. It's an anaphrodisiac. It does the opposite of an aphrodisiac. It's an antibacterial, an antidepressant, an antifungal, carminative, antiseptic, antispasmodic, aromatic, bitter, digestive, and amphoteric. So amphoteric means it does both. It stimulates and it's a sedative. It's a stimulant because it stimulates the digestive system, because we learned that lavender is bitter, and bitter herbs are good for the digestive system. And it's a sedative because it helps calm the nerves. It's an expectorant, a nervine, a rubefacient, and the indications. So when would you use lavender? Lavender can be used if you're stressed, and I'm sure we all use lavender for that. When we can't sleep, when our nerves are shot, lavender is such a beautiful herb for that. It helps with asthma, insomnia, muscle spasm, pain. It heals typhoid, diphtheria, staph infections, strep infections, bacterial infections, and many other strains. It's good for hair loss, athlete's foot, earache, sore muscles. And the contraindications, you wouldn't use lavender in large doses during pregnancy. So how would you prepare lavender? Lavender is prepared by infusing 1 teaspoon to 1 cup of water. So this is different than the other herbs. The other herbs you would use than rose. Rose you would use 1 tablespoon, but lavender is super strong and potent, so you only need a little bit, just like ginger. Ginger is super strong, so you'd only need 1 teaspoon, and then you would let it steep for 15 to 20 minutes. Lavender can also be used as a mouthwash for those who have bad breath or just in general. So if you don't want to like use Listerine anymore, you want to go herbal, you can wash some lavender water in your mouth. It's good for a foot bath since it gets rid of athlete's foot, and it's good for yoni baths. It rids BV, trichomoniasis, yeast infections, everything genital wise. Lavender is a beautiful herb for that. And something that my teacher shared with us is using lavender in spaghetti sauce. Apparently that tastes really good. I haven't tried that yet, so I can't say or speak for that, but that's something if any of you guys are feeling creative, a way to use lavender. But I did use lavender in potato salad and that tasted bomb, so I highly recommend. And you can use lavender, add it to your shampoos, use it as a head rinse, when you're stressed and you just want to like give that crown chakra some love. You can put some lavender in your head, and and you can use the essential oils in a diffuser. So spiritual meaning of lavender. So how does lavender make you feel? We know that lavender is a bitter, it's cooling, it's ruled by sun, Mercury, and air. So lavender has been used for protection, and it's used to see ghosts, spirits, but not just any spirits. It's used to see spirits of our fears, like holograms of our fears. And this makes sense because when you think of like Mercury is usually like a trickster, right? It's about duality. So lavender herb teaches us how do we honor and respect our shadow side instead of judging it. And that's not always easy, right? So lavender can help with that. It helps us balance duality because none of us want to show up with our shadow side. It could get ugly and scary, but the shadow, we need the darkness in order to have light. And lavender is a beautiful herb for us to like get to know that side of ourselves. And it's a fierce herb. It's known as the mother of dragons because it can be sweet. The aroma of lavender is so calming and relaxing, but it's also fierce because if you guys ever had lavender tea, that is super bitter. It is insanely bitter. So just have a little bit. But lavender is beautiful, and just getting to know and understanding the way an herb tastes, smells, feel, we can get a sense of their personality and their spiritual benefits. Lavender is also good for purification baths or for clarity. And this makes sense because, Mercury is like rules our nerves and the mind. Sometimes our mind can always be running and we like lose sight of what is clear. And taking lavender tea or using it as a bath, head wash is a beautiful way to like reconnect with our sight again. So do you guys have any questions on these herbs so far? I'm sorry if I'm going too fast.
There are a lot of questions, so I don't know if you want to do the demo and then do all the questions at once, or if you want to pause now. Okay.
Okay, I'll just do that, but okay. So yes, since we have 20 minutes left. Okay, we could go to the next slide. Thanks, Mara. Okay, so now I shared an herbal honey recipe with you guys just to get you started, but I don't want you to feel limited to this. And I know I mentioned 3 herbs, rose, lavender, and ginger, but you can use any herb. One herb that my teacher loves using with herbal honeys is thyme. You can literally use anything. You can use peppermint. Just make sure they're dried, okay? So if you don't have access to these herbs, you can always use any herbs you have access to, and you don't have to use like a tablespoon. You feel called to just use a little bit of lavender or no lavender. You just want to make a rose ginger honey medicine. So just don't feel like you're limited to just these. But for today's workshop, we're gonna use this recipe. So to do this recipe, you could go to the next slide, Mara, thank you. So for making herbal infused honey, you need a jar. Sorry, let me remove my background just in case you guys can't see me when it comes to medicine making. Oh, how do I? Oh no. Okay, there. Sorry, guys, I'm not tech savvy. Okay, so for herbal infused honey, you need a jar, you need honey, and you need herbs. So just move my. So you need herbs. So I have ginger here. I have lavender.
Hey, Kelly, I have a quick question.
Yes?
Do you mind if I stop the screen share so people can see you big on their screen again, and then we can bring it up? Okay.
Yes, that's fine. Okay, sorry. All right, so just letting you guys. So again, so you need the jar, you need the herbs, which I have here, the lavender, ginger, and rose, and honey. And you can use any jar. Right now I have a 4-ounce jar, but you can, whatever jar you have, just make sure that when you put the herbs, it's only 1/4 to the jar. And and then and like I had mentioned earlier, you want to use dried herbs, not fresh herbs. And now we're gonna put the herbs in the jar. So when you're making the medicine, you want to set your intention. You want to be in a good mood. When people say you don't cook when you're angry because the food's gonna taste bad. So it's the same with your medicine. You wanna be in a good state. You could play some music. You could just be happy or anyway relaxing. But you wanna set your intention, be in that state, and then you just put the roses. I'm called to use more roses tonight, but you can use as much as you want. And with this herbal infused honey, you can use it in many ways. You can add it to your skincare, you can pour it on your skin, you could take it when you're sick. And then next, we're gonna pour the honey in the jar. And a little side note, when you do this, make sure that you kind of move the herbs around and the herbs really mix with the honey. So I'm just gonna pour this. See it? And you're gonna fill it all the way to the top. And you may have to alternate with pouring a little bit and then start mixing the herbs in so the herbs are really mixed with the honey, because it's really sticky. So you just want to make sure that they're really mixed in. And then you want to pour a little bit more honey. Okay. So I'm gonna just keep mixing it. Set your intentions. Okay. And because honey is a preservative, it lasts indefinitely, for a long time. But you're gonna infuse this for 1 to 2 weeks. I personally like to infuse it a little longer, so maybe I'll do 3 weeks. But it's up to you. I would do 3 to 4 weeks, but it's up to you. I like it strong, so the longer you infuse it, the stronger the medicine. But after you let it infuse for a week or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever you guys want, you're gonna have to strain the honey and the herbs. hold on, let me just put this here. You're gonna have to you're gonna have to strain the honey and herbs. But after you finish, you're gonna close it, tighten it, and then you need a label, and you gotta write the date. Rose, ginger, lavender, 2225, 2022. Oh God, we're in 2022. Okay. And the moon's in Capricorn. So after you make the medicine, you're gonna label it, the herbs, rose, ginger, lavender, and the menstruum we use to infuse it, which is honey, and then the date. And I personally like to put the phase of the moon, but it's up to you. Or you can also, what other people like to do and I like to do is maybe if you know, when you're setting your intention for the honey, you can like write a word if you want to invite love or sweetness, health, wealth. You could just, write it on the label as well. And then you store it in a cool place away from sunlight, let it infuse for a week or longer, and then you strain the herbs. And yeah, that's your herbal honey. And you can make it with your loved ones. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And now I can answer questions. So thanks for
All right.
Hey.
Hey. I kind of broke down the questions into rose, ginger, lavender, and the infusion. So maybe I'll pull a few from each. Someone was wondering if they have or rose bushes in their organic garden. Can they use them, or do you have to source like specific roses?
Yeah, they can use them as long as it's edible, not like the decorative roses.
Okay.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, that would be fun. Can you use the rose hips after they've frozen in winter?
What do you mean? Like the rose hips, like when they're,
I guess, do they need to be like fresh from the bush, or is it okay if you catch them after the frost?
you'd want them fresh because that's when it has its medicine. When it's frosted, it goes back to the roots.
Nice.
So you'd want it fresh.
And how do you use the flowers versus the hips was another question.
So this is how the flowers look, the petals, when you get dried roses. And then the hips are they're ball shaped. I can actually show you guys real quick. Let me BRB and show you how the rose hips look.
Wow. Agota, I think to your question, which rose is edible, or how do you know which roses are edible? I think if you find like the Latin name, you can do a little research and it'll tell you if it's decorative or can be used for like culinary things.
So these are how the rose hips look when they're dried. And you can buy this at your local apothecary, any herbal shop, or online. And you're gonna decoct it, meaning you boil it. You take a tablespoon and then you put 1 to 2 cups of water. You let it boil, then you let it steep for 10 to 20 minutes.
Cool. They're bigger than I thought.
Oh, these are the whole ones. They have some rose hips that are like chopped already.
They're like little jewels.
Yeah, they're pretty.
Can you, maybe this is about rose hips. Someone was asking if you're supposed to cook them or grate them, or you can just eat them raw, if you know that.
I think you can eat them raw. Yeah, and you can cook them. You can make rose hip jam. I know people do that. Or they they use rose hips for baking.
Yeah, I think they're similar to cranberries, maybe. Or like
Mm-hmm.
and Okay, let's move on to, the questions about ginger were how to grow it, or if you can. Have you ever done that, Kelly?
No, I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I've never grown ginger.
I also haven't, but I put the link to the webinar from previous sessions about growing ginger, but I do want to grow it one day. Okay, then for the infusion, how do you strain honey when it's so sticky?
So I technically, I personally, sometimes I just leave it because, oh, that's the one you guys just reminded me. An important thing. So after you strain the honey, the herbs, you don't want to throw out the herbs. You can use it in your teas because it's still good. Or you can, yeah, you can use it in your teas or add it into your bath so you don't waste the herbs. But I like to just, I keep it. I keep the herbs because honestly, it's so hard to strain honey because it's so thick. So I would just like scoop around the herbs. Or what you'll notice is if you mix it properly, the herbs start to float to the top. So it's easy to remove. You can just remove it and you're not really wasting it because that herb, you can put it in your tea or you can put it in your bath or in other warming drinks. So you don't waste that honey. So that's one way you can strain it if you don't want to strain it where people with the strainer because it's so thick.
How long does it last? And do you have to refrigerate it?
No, once you strain it, it lasts indefinitely because honey lasts forever. As long as it's dry, not not fresh.
And the ginger that you use is also dry. Is it like
Yeah.
powdered culinary ginger?
No, it's dry ginger.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to use herbs, not powder for honey.
And does the type of honey matter? Are there like different types you use for different herbs?
No, it doesn't matter. I like to use raw, but it's up to you. I know sometimes it's hard to have access to raw honey, but you can use any honey. You could even use other honeys that there's like wildflower honey, there's red clover honey, there's berry honey, there's like lots of types of honey. So whatever you feel called to use, you can use.
Cool. Someone in the chat's talking about a rose festival in Morocco. That sounds
Oh my God, I have to go. I've
amazing.
always wanted to go to Morocco. Thank you. I'll check that out.
And in India, there's a rose petal jam dish, it sounds. Oh my God, there's so much info. Yeah.
Oh wow, this is making me hungry. Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay, we all have to go. We all have to go to Morocco.
I know, let's go. Oh, thanks, Haley. Yes, you guys can always contact me. I'll share the PowerPoint again with you all. But my Instagram, my email, my website is on it. So if you have any more questions, feel free to message me.
Thank you. Yeah, I can post the link to the Slack also if people want to talk herbs and honey and roses after the session. We can continue that over there and make some travel plans.
Hi, Emerald. Thank you for coming. Thanks, Liz. Yes, definitely. We got to go to Morocco. Oh my gosh.
Well, if anyone has any other questions, I can see them. But yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight and your very thoughtful questions and engagement in the chat. Kelly, that was such a wonderful presentation. The artwork was beautiful. Everything about it was really, really wonderful. I'm seeing one last question. That's a good one. Besides sweetening, how else would you use this honey?
You can use it for your face. Add it to your yogurt or face mask. I personally love to use it in a bath. When I make a herbal bath, I love to just add honey for more sweetness in my life. So that's one way you could use it. You can use it to on your toast, on your food. dressing your candles, dressing anything. There's so many ways. Whatever you feel called, trust it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly, for helping us close out the week-long GreenThumb Grow Together conference tonight.
Thank
I really
you so
appreciate you
much.
taking the time to share all of your knowledge with us.
No problem. Thank you so much, everyone.